Are Russians different from other Europeans is a question that is often asked. It is, of course, a racist question, like Afrikaners during apartheid arguing that blacks were different, but it is clear that Russians have enjoyed or suffered under different influences from most Western European countries. First, the distinctive terrain is important. Russia is situated on more than one continent. The country spans the northern part of the Eurasian continent. 77% is in Asia. The western 23% of the country is located in Europe. European Russia occupies almost 40% of the total area of Europe. The specific traits of Russia's natural environment have been often unproductive soil, a short growing season, an abundance of land and a small population. Distance from navigable seas and usually arduous land travel were the main features distinguishing Russia from Western Europe. Russia contains Europe's longest river, the Volga, and its largest lake, Ladoga. Russia is also home to the world's deepest lake, Baikal, and the country has recorded the world's lowest temperature outside the North and South Poles. Geography is of vital influence because the country has few natural defensive barriers. The flat plains have invited centuries of invasions. It is often forgotten today that the Red Army was largely responsible for the destruction of the Wehrmacht. Tens of millions of Russian civilians and soldiers died in the Second World War. That is why, in Russia, security trumps all. So, Russians have good reasons to be paranoid about foreigners. And the burden of history is part of the famous Russian mood swings, from bloated patriotism to debilitating pessimism. The inhabitants of Russia are quite diverse. It has many languages and cultures, although Russian is often the common language. It is often said that Russia has an unpredictable past. The origin myths are frequently juggled, just as Putin is now doing with the origins of Ukraine, Little Russia, as an intrinsic part of Russia, just as Belarus, White Russia, is said to be. All belong to the same great nation, argued Putin. All were part of one Russia led by the great Russians. Russians often talk about the Asiatic stuff and blame the Mongol yoke. They often relate the Russian style of ruthless dictatorship to the heritage of Mongol rule. The Mongols ruled for only 250 years, and nobody would say that the Spaniards are not Europeans because they were ruled by Muslims for much longer. Geography and foreign occupation are obviously important factors, as was the religious and cultural influence of Byzantium. The country's poverty is often noted, as is the country's feudal system, but it is also important to remember that the serfs were liberated in 1861, 4 years before the slaves were freed in the USA.